So, good morning, classmates, and to our teacher, Ma'am Maureen. So, we are the Group 2 reporting for today, and our topic is all about taxation. Taxation is defined in many ways like, it is the process by which the sovereign, through its law-making body, raises revenues used to defray expenses of government. It is means of a government increasing in its revenue under the authority of the law, purposely used to promote welfare and protection of its citizenry. It is the collection of the share of individual and organizational income by a government under the authority of the law. So, ang pagbibis ay ang pagpapataw ng mga salitang pataw sa mga individual o entidad ng mga pamahalaan sa halos lahat ng bansa sa mundo. Ang pagbibis din ay ang pangunahing ginagamit upang taasan ang kita para sa mga paggasta ng pamahalaan. Bagamat maaari na rin itong magsilbi sa iba pang mga layunin. Pera na binibigyan bilang buwis. Ang pagbibis ay tumutukoy sa pagkilos ng pagpapataw o pagpapataw ng buwis sa isang awtoridad sa pagbibis. Kasama na ang mga pagbibis, ang kita, kapital, gain, o ari-arian. So, ang Tagalog ng taxation ay pagbibis para sa alam ng karamihan. So, ito yung mga words na pwedeng gamitin sa taxation. Tulad ng paper, budget, concept, at financial, business, report, return, wealth, debt, pay. Yan yung mga words na pwede natin gamitin sa taxation.
Dumako naman tayo sa history of taxation. Ang taxation ay nagsimula pa noong unang panahon. Nagsimula ito sa mga ancient Filipinos. Ang taxation noong unang panahon ay binabayaran ito sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng buwis sa kanilang datu or pinuno para sa proteksyong binibigay nito sa kanila. Lahat ng mga ninuno natin ay obligadong magbayad ng buwis dahil kung hindi sila magbabayad ay mapapatawan sila ng malaking parusa. Dumako naman tayo sa panahon ng pananakop ng mga Espanyol. Noong pananakop ng mga Espanyol noong 1521 to 1898, nagkaroon ng mas modernong konsepto ng taxation sa Pilipinas, kung saan ang may edad na 16 to 60 years old ay sa pilitang pinagbabayad ng tribute na nagkakahalaga ng 8 reals or 1 peso. Binabayaran nila ito sa King of Spain through the colonial government. May mga iba ring paraan para ikaw ay makapagbayad sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng manok, ginto, textile, bigas, at forced labor o polo e-servisyo. Dumako naman tayo sa sedula. Noong 1884, napalitan ang tribute ng sedula. Ang sedula ay isang papel o certificate of identifying taxpayer na kailangang hawak ng bawat isa saan man sila magpunta. Kung wala kang maipapakita sa mga gwardiya sibil na sedula, ikaw ay makukulong for being indocumentado. Ang indocumentado na ang ibig sabihin ay kawalan ng valid na dokumento o legal na pagkakakilanlan para patunayan ang iyong sarili. Dumako naman tayo sa 1987 Philippine Constitution. Ang 1987 Philippine Constitution ay nagpataw ng limitasyon sa kapangyarihan sa tax. Dapat ang taxation ay pantay-pantay Ang taxation noong panahong 1987 Philippine Constitution ay kino-cover niya both national and local. Ang BIR ang nagkokolekta sa mga buwis galing sa national taxes at ang local government naman ang nagkokolekta sa buwis na nanggagaling sa local taxes. Dumako naman tayo sa train law. Si President Rodrigo Duterte ang nag-implementa ng train law or tax reform for acceleration and inclusion na napirmahan last January 1, 2018. Ito ay naglalayong korektahin ang mga deficiencies sa ating tax system at gawin itong simple, pantay at more efficient. Sa train law, mas malaki ang kontribusyon ng mga mayayaman kesa sa mahihirap. Mas makikinabang ang mga mahihirap sa mga iba't ibang programa at serbisyo ng gobyerno nang dahil sa train law na ipinatupad ni President Rodrigo Duterte.
Types of taxes. National taxes. Taxes paid to the government through the Bureau of Internal Revenue. The national taxation system is based on the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 or the RA 84-24, otherwise known as the Tax Reform Act of 1997 as amended. The first one is the capital gains tax. Tax imposed on gains that may have been realized by a seller from the sale, exchange, or other disposition of capital assets located in the Philippines, including pacto direto sales, sales with a condition for repurchase and other forms, and conditional sales. Dito naman, ipinapataw sa mga kita na maaring natanto ng isang nagbebenta mula sa pagbebenta. For example, sa pagpapalitan ng produkto sa China at sa Philippines. Second one is the documentary stamp tax. Is a tax on documents, instruments, loan agreements, and paper evidencing the acceptance, assignment, sale, or transfer of an obligation, rights, or property incident thereto. So, dito naman sa documentary stamp tax is isang buwis sa mga dokumento or instrumento sa kasunduan ng pautang. For example, pag nangutang ka sa iyong kapitbahay, is may nangyayaring agreement or meron kang pinipirmahan na mga papeles na ikaw ay nangutang sa kanya, yon yung parang patunay na talagang may utang ka sa kanya. For the third one is the donor tax. Tax on a donation or gift. Tax imposed on the gracious free transfer of property between two or more persons who are living in the time of the transfer. For the third one is buwis na ipinapataw sa walang bayad na palipat ng ari-arian sa pagitan ng dalawa o higit sa panahon ng transfer. Dito naman is property between two person living time of the transfer. Yung pagtra-transfer ng mga may-ari sa, for example, yung bahay, itrina-transfer sa may-ari. For example, dalawa silang nakatira sa bahay, kailangan nilang paghatian yon.
So, the fourth one in the national taxes is the estate tax. Estate tax is a tax on the right of the deceased person to transmit his or her estate to lawful heirs and beneficiaries at the time of death and on certain transfer which are made by law
as equivalent to testamentary disposition. So estate task, it is a task imposed on a privilege of transmitting property upon the death of the owner. The estate task is based on the laws in force at the time of death, notwithstanding the postponement of the actual possessions or enjoyment of the estate by the beneficiaries. So, with the definition itself, understandable naman na siguro. Ang estate task, ito yung task which is kapag namatay yung isang tao, lahat ng mga pagmamayari niya is na i-transfer sa kanyang mga beneficiaries. Next is the income task. Income task, it is a task on all annual profits made from property ownership, professions, trade, or offices. So, ang income tax ay isang buwis sa lahat ng taunang kita na nakuha mula sa magmamay-ari ng ari-arian, propesyon, kalakalan o opisina. Next is the percentage task. Percentage task, it is a business task imposed on persons or entities who sell or lease goods, properties or services in the course of trade or business whose gross annual sales or receipts do not exceed the amount required to register as value-added tax registered taxpayers. Certain business in the Philippines that sells or lease goods, properties or services can be treated under the percentage tax system. This may depend, example, on the value of sales generated in a year of the particular business model and industry. So, yon ang percentage tax. Next is the value-added tax. A value-added tax, it is a business task imposed and collected from the seller in the course of trade or business on every sale of properties, lease of goods or properties or vendors of services. So, ang value-added task, ito ay isang uri ng buwis, which is ipinapataw o itinadagdag sa bawat produkto habang dumadaan sa bawat proseso sa supply chain. For example, ang mga manufacturer, bumibili sila ng materyales na kailangan sa paggawa ng produkto, which is nagbabayad sila ng value-added tax. Same as with the wholesaler. Nagbabayad din sila ng value-added tax kapag bumili sila ng product sa mga manufacturer. Ganon din sa retailer hanggang sa mapunta sa atin ng mga consumer. So, ibig sabihin, sa bawat pag-consume o pagbili natin ng mga produkto, nagbabayad tayo ng value-added tax.
Number 8. Excise tax. Tax imposed a good manufactured or produced in the Philippines for domestic sales or consumption or any other disposition. Ang excise tax ay buwis na kalimitang pinapataw sa mga produktong ginawa dito sa Pilipinas para sa Pilipino at sa mga produktong inaangkat mula sa ibang bansa. Ang excise tax ay mayroong dalawang klase. Ang una, specific tax. Ang pangalawa, ad valorem tax. Ang specific, ito ay buwis na pinataw sa isang produkto base sa bigat o sukat nito. Ang ad valorem tax naman ay ito ay buwis na pinapataw na binabase sa kanyang halaga ng isang produkto. Ang mga sumusunod ay ang mga produkto na pinapatawan ng malaking excise tax tulad ng alcohol, tobacco, petroleum, mineral, at iba pa. Withholding tax on compensation. The tax withheld from individual receiving purely compensation income arising from the employee and employer relationship. Withholding tax on compensation is an approximate of income tax liability on compensation required to be
withheld by the employer upon every payment or accrual or recording of salaries and wage in the books of account. In short, between employee and employer. Number 10. Expanded withholding tax. Ito naman ay isang uri ng withholding tax na kadalasang ibinabawas sa mga gastusin tulad ng renta at iba pang bayad mula sa personal na serbisyo. Sa ngayon, kadalasan mong makikita kapag nag-file ka na 1601 o ang quarterly remittance return of credible income tax withheld. 11. Final withholding tax. Ang salitang final withholding tax ay isa ring uri ng withholding tax kung saan ang huling buwis na kinakaltas ay katumbas ng pangkabuuang buwis o obligado. Itong bayaran ng tumatanggap ng income o kita. 12. Withholding tax on government money pays. Tax withheld by government officers including government-owned or controlled corporation and local government units before making any payments to private individuals, corporations, partnership, and other association. Ito ang tax para sa mga government owner. Example, yung PCSO and yung GSIS, Government Service Insurance System.
Local taxes. Local taxes is an assessment by a state, country, or municipality to fund public services ranging from education to garbage collection and sewer maintenance. Local taxes come in many forms, from property taxes and payroll taxes to sale taxes and licensing fees. Local taxes fund government services including police and fire services, education and health services, libraries, road maintenance, and other programs and projects which benefit the community at large. Tax on transfer of real property ownership. The Local Government Code of 1991 also imposes tax on the sale or transfer of ownership or title to a real property. This is in the nature of a transfer tax. Transfer tax is the tax imposed on the sale, barter, or any other method of transferring of the ownership or the title of the real property. It is imposed at the maximum rate of 50% or 1% of a property's worth in the case of cities and municipalities within Metro Manila. This is 75% of 1% depending on the specific LGU. Transfer taxes shall be paid before the LGU that has jurisdiction over the location of the property. In particular, the transfer tax shall be paid to the treasurer's office of the city or municipality where the property is located. There are requirements for the payment of the transfer tax. Number 1 is the CAR from the BIR, real property tax clearance from the Treasurer's Office, and official receipt from the BIR for the DST. The payment of transfer tax is the responsibility of the seller or transferor and shall be paid within 60 days from the date of execution of the deed of conveyance. There are penalties that been imposed in case of late payment of the transfer tax. Number 1 is the surcharge not exceeding 25% of the amount of taxes, fees, charges, or charges not paid on time,
and B. Interest at the rate not exceeding 2% per month of the unpaid taxes, fees, or charges until such amount is fully paid, but in no case shall the total interest on the unpaid amount or portion thereof exceed 36 months. Once paid, the LGU concerned will issue clearance or evidence of payment of transfer taxes. This clearance from the LGU is a mandatory requirement before the deed of absolute sale may be registered with the Register of Deeds, or RD. This is also required for the cancellation of the old tax declaration. B. Tax on the business of printing and publication. The Local Government Code of the Philippines authorizes LGUs to collect taxes from printing or publication businesses that produce books, cards, posters, tarpaulins, pamphlets, leaflets, and other similar materials. The maximum rate of this local tax is 50% of 1% of the gross annual receipts for the previous calendar year. For newly opened printing or publication businesses, the maximum rate is 1 out of 20 of 1% of the capital investment. C. Franchise tax. If you run a franchise business, your LGU may require you to pay the franchise tax with the same maximum rate as the tax on the business of printing and publication. In general, the franchise tax is charged by a state of businesses. This is in exchange for the privilege of incorporating or doing business in a particular country. This tax usually varies from one country to another. Moreover, franchise taxes like income taxes are usually collected annually. Also, the failure to pay this tax can result in the disqualification of the business from operating in the country. In terms of legalities, any business is required to register in the Philippines, including corporations and partnership. The said businesses are charged a franchise tax. However, for sole proprietorships, they are not usually subject to franchise taxes since these businesses are not formally registered in the country where they cooperate.
So, dumako naman tayo dito sa tax on sand, gravel, and other quarry resources, which is imposed on ordinary stones, sand, gravel, earth, and other quarry resources as defined under the Natural Internal Revenue Code as amended. Ibig sabihin nito, ang pagbabayad ng buwis ukol sa itinakdang porsyento o 10% gaya na lang ito sa per cubico sa ordinance sa paglayunin. Next is professional tax, which is annual tax on each person engaged in the exercise or practice of her profession that requires government examination like licensure examination. Ibig sabihin nito, tax that is levied by a state government on all individuals who earn a living through any medium and should not confuse. This is a tax that is to be paid by every earning individuals. Lahat ng personal at may sariling pinagkakakitnaan tulad na lang ng tindahan, sari-sari store at lahat ng may sariling diskarte sa profession. Amusement tax. Tax collect from the proprietors or operators of theaters, cinemas, concert halls, boxing studio, and other places of amusement. So dito, ibig sabihin nito ay ang pagbabayad ng buwis ng individual na manggagawa o halimbawa na lang kapag ang isang individual ay wala sa kumpanya o nasa pribadong kumpanya at ang individual na iyon ay may sarili sa hulog ng kanyang buwis na ayon sa kanyang kinikita. Lumako naman tayo dito sa tax on business imposed by cities or municipalities on business before they will be issued a business license or permit to start operations based on the schedule of rate prescribed by the local government as amended. So, binubuo ng iba't ibang negosyo gaya ng manufacturing business na naghahatid sa iba't ibang bansa ng imported goods, sapatos at mga produktong gulay at prutas.
Tax on business is imposed by cities or municipalities on business license or permit based on the schedule of rates prescribed by the government code as amended. Ipinapataw ng mga lungsod o munisipalidad itong tax on business. Sa bawat negosyante o mga nagbabalak magnegosyo, ay kailangan nilang kumuha ng permit o permiso sa kanilang mga munisipalidad. Fees for sealing and licensing of weights and measures. Imposed for the sealing and licensing of weight and measures. This is to impose regulations with regards to such weight and measures as prescribed by the city, provincial or municipal councils. Ang fees for sealings and licensing of weights and measures ay ipinataw para sa paglilensensya ng sukat at timbang. Ito ay upang magpataw sa mga naturang timbang at sukat na itinakda ng konseho ng lungsod, probinsya o munisipyo. Fishery rentals, fees and charges are imposed by the municipalities to grantees of fishery privileges in the municipal waters, especially the privilege to build fish corrals, mussels, or other aquatic beads or more, or who is required by law to file an income tax return. Ang fees, rentals, and charges ay ipinapataw ng munisipyo sa mga napagkalooban ng mga pribilehiyo ng pangisdaan sa katubigan, lalo na ang pribilehiyong magtayo ng fish, corals, oysters, mussels, o iba pang aquatic bed o bangos fry areas at iba pa sa local government code. Ang mga munisipalidad ay dapat magkaroon ng eksklusibong otoridad na magbigay ng mga pribilehiyo ng pangisdaan sa mga tubig ng munisipyo at magpataw ng mga upa. Number 11. Community tax. Tax levied by cities or municipalities to every Filipino or alien living in the Philippines 18 years of age or over, who has been regularly employed on a wage or salary basis for at least 30 consecutive working days during any calendar year, or who is engaged in business or occupation or who owns real property with an aggregate assessed value of 1,000 pesos or more, who is required by law in file an income tax return. Ito ay buwis na ipinapataw ng mga lungsod o munisipalidad sa bawat Pilipino o dayuhan na naninirahan sa Pilipinas na 18 years old pataas na regular na nagtatrabaho ng hindi bababa sa 30 consecutive working days o kung sino ang nakikibahagi sa negosyo o trabaho o nagmamay-ari ng real property na may pinagsama-samang tinasang halaga na 1,000 pesos o higit pa, na inaatas ng batas na maghain ng income tax return. Halimbawa, ang mga lupa ng ating mga magulang ay kanilang binabayaran o binubuwisan nila ito taon-taon. Number 12. Taxes levied on the barangays on stores or retailers with fixed business establishment. Ito ay buwis na ipinapataw sa mga tindahan o sa mga may negosyo. Halimbawa, si Pipita ay may maliit na negosyo. Kahit man maliit ang kanyang negosyo, ay nararapat siyang magbayad ng kanyang buwis sa kanyang negosyo.
Service fees or charges are fees or charges collected by the barangay for services rendered in connection with the regulation or the use of barangay-owned properties or service facilities, such as palay, kopra, or tobacco dryer. Ang halimbawa nito ay ang mga bayarin o singil na kinokolekta ng barangay kasabay ng regulasyon o paggamit ng mga ari-arian tulad ng palay, kopra, o mga tuyong tabako. Barangay clearance, a fee collected by the barangay upon issuance of barangay clearance, a document required for many government transactions, such as when you're getting business permit from a city or municipal government, or applying for a job in a government office or private company. Ang barangay clearance ay isa sa mga requirement na ginagamit upang maging daan sa pag-apply ng mga trabaho. Ito ay nagsisilbing good moral sa barangay. Ito din ay daan sa pagkuha ng pera kung sakaling ikaw ay minor de edad pa lamang. Yun lang, thank you.